Okay. Good afternoon, Spotlight Around Town community. Thank you for joining in on the Spotlight Around Town interview series. Today, I have the absolute honor of talking with Brenda Winkle of Your Yes Filled Life. Brenda, thank you for joining me. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about yourself and your Yes Filled Life?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sherry, for hosting me. I'm so excited to be here on Spotlight Around Town. So, my podcast is called Your Yes Filled Life. That's my brand. And it comes from this idea that so many times we're busy saying yes to all of the people around us, the people that we love, the people that maybe we feel pressured by, the people that maybe we feel obligated to. And sometimes there's not enough yes left for us. So the idea of the yes filled life is that you get to have some of that yes too. So when we think about your yes filled life, it is where you get to prioritize the things that matter to you. And that's what I help people do through somatic coaching, breath work, psychic medium work, and lots of different things, working one on one and in groups.
You are just so amazing. Every time we talk or I listen to you, I feel personally more empowered that I have somebody I can reach out to,
Thank
right?
you for saying that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have a really great following, and I'm sure the people who follow you feel the same way. That's why they follow you.
I hope so. I think, at the end of the day, I always think about who can I help? Who can I serve? Whether they become a client or they are just somebody on social media, how can I help? Because I think that the world needs help right now.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel personally called to help people with deep empathy, deep compassion, high levels of intuition, because that describes me. And I know that for much of my life, I gave away my own power, my own empathic gifts, absorbing things from other people that didn't even know I was doing it, didn't even ask me to, along with people who actually took advantage of those gifts and skills. And I feel like now is the time for those of us that have these abilities, the high levels of empathy, compassion, intuition, heart centeredness. It's time for us to step into more prominent leadership.
Yes, yes. Agreed. Agreed. So my first question is you say regulating the nervous system is the foundation for sound decision making. I would agree. What does that look like in real life when someone's stressed, busy, or like mid transition?
Yeah. So, this is a really important foundational question. When we look at the nervous system, just a little bit of science, and then we'll get into why, because I think it matters for those of us that are intelligent. We're thinking about poking holes in any theory or anything that sounds too woo. And I can be woo. So, let me ground it for just a second. We know that 80% or so of the neurological signals that are coming to the brain come from the body, they flow upward. Only 20% of the brain's signals flow downward. So, if we're relying only on our brains, on our structured mind to make our decisions, we're missing out on most of the information that's coming from the body. And when we think about emotional regulation, we know that the nervous system has a tremendous impact on our emotions. And if we are feeling tense in the body, or we're under high stress situations, we're in pressurized environments with very fast pace, we don't have time to actually even let an emotion land, then what happens is we store those emotions in the nervous system. And what happens over time is we have this low grade stress response in our bodies. And depending on how you're built, that's going to turn into either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Meaning it could be that you overbook your schedule. You just keep saying yes to things. It could be that you can't remember what you wanted to do. And every time you sit down to do that thing that would move the needle, you
Yep.
forget to send the email, forget to, respond to the invitation that you actually had wanted. It could mean that you people please like your life depends on it
Right.
because your body thinks it does.
Right.
Or it might be that you overconsume information and you just keep thinking, oh, I don't know enough yet. Let me listen to one more podcast. Let me sign up for one more summit. Let me just do this one more thing. And all of these things, there's no judgment here, by the way. I do these things too. This happens to me, which is why I teach what I teach. All of these things are our body's way of saying, I'm viewing what's happening as potential threat, and I don't want you to do it.
Right.
And so how this impacts us in our decision making is, if our body's reading the changes that we're trying to implement as a threat, we're working against our entire nervous system.
We really are. Very much so. I'm going to pause this just for a minute and go step away. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Thank you for a very thoughtful answer. That helped a lot. And as your work blends science-minded, trauma-informed somatics, let's try. Your work blends science-minded, trauma-informed somatics with intuitive energy and healing. For the skeptics, as we know there are, what's the bridge that helps them trust this work without feeling like it's like they're joining a drum circle without their approval?
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, we're each going to have to choose what resonates with us. And if this specific kind of work feels way too out there for you, then that's okay. That this isn't for everybody. Not everybody is drawn to energy work. But I will tell you, for the skeptics, if you were to actually ask your body, get present and ask your body any discomfort, any sensation, ask what it needs, it will tell you. And there's a whole lot of research around this. We know from books like The Body Keeps the Score, What Happened to You. We know that this stuff is real. But one of my favorite books is Heal Your Body by Louise Hay. Okay. And I actually keep it. I must have it right here because I keep it at hand's length because, it is literally right here.
Right on.
This book it reads like a little dictionary about what body part or what sensation you might be experiencing, the emotional underpinning, and a potential affirmation. And I can't tell you the number of times that I have worked with a client who, let's say, had a knee problem. And we did affirmations around being more flexible, and their knee pain dissolved. Or somebody that was having ankle pain, and then we did affirmations around being willing to experience the joys and pleasures of life, and their ankle pain suddenly got better. And so it's okay to be skeptical. I think it's actually useful to be skeptical. And I'm saying that wholeheartedly because we don't want to be taken advantage of. We're in a massive trust recession. So many of us have bought things that did not turn out to be what they were supposed to be. And it ended up to be sort of like the snake oil salesman from the musicals of days gone by. And so I think a little skepticism is a good thing, but you'll know in your body whether or not something is for you.
Right. I believe that. I honestly believe that. Been there a few times. So you specialize in identity shifts, those seasons where life changes faster than your nervous system can integrate. Mm-hmm. What is the most common sign that someone is in an identity lag?
Oh my goodness. Well, there can be multiple signs that you might be in an identity lag. So let's say you really want something. For example, this happened to me today. So I'll give you an example from my own life today. I wanted this speaking opportunity to speak in front of this group. It is a closed door by invitation only situation. And you can't even apply until you meet the people inside the group. So I really wanted this to happen. And I was accepted. And it feels so good. And then I got an email from the leader of the group that I needed to submit my bio, my press kit, my headshots. I sat down 4 different times to reply to that email with the requested information, and all 4 times found something different to do.
Yeah.
So that's a really common thing that can happen for people when they're in an identity shift. The other thing is there's this feeling of not belonging. You don't quite belong where you are. You know you're shifting and changing, but there's a part of you that doesn't feel totally like you are in what you're in. So if you've ever been married, you experience this when at one period of time in the day, you were not married, you were single, and then by the end of the day, you were married. You became a spouse. That's a massive identity shift. And so if we think about it in terms that we can relate to, like that, or parenting, or becoming a pet parent, or buying your first home, or renting a new home, there's an identity shift that happens at each one of those things. I am someone who, fill in the blank. I am someone who is married. I am someone who lives in this type of home. All of those things are identity. So if you are doing something that you know you really want to do, and you have a hard time saying, I'm someone who speaks in prestigious groups, for example, and then you find yourself not doing the follow through, there's an identity lag.
Oh, that's interesting. So, this doesn't necessarily have to be part of the video. What happened? Were you able to
Yeah,
get
I
it
sent
done?
it.
Oh,
And
good.
you can include that. I don't mind you including it at all, because I think that there's this myth that there are certain people who have worked through every issue to work through. And that's just not true.
Okay.
We're all humans. We all have nervous systems. We all have identities that are constantly evolving. The arrival fallacy is truly a fallacy. It doesn't exist. We're always evolving and growing into the next phase of ourselves. And I continue to do this work because I need this work.
Yeah. Yeah. For yourself, if
That's
nothing
right.
else.
That's right.
I could totally see that. You have widely specific foundational insight. Noticing every time you had to hold your bladder. That, in our initial discussion, do you know how many times I've thought about that? In a given situation, it's like, is this something that's impacting my ability to live a full life? I mean, is
It's
this
major.
situation? It is.
Yeah.
You put
Yeah.
that bug in my ear.
And so, just to land the plane for the listener, in our very first conversation, Sherry asked me, what's one thing I tell people? And the very first thing I tell everybody, client, podcast listener, is pay attention to when you have to go to the bathroom, and notice how often you are delaying your own body's functions for someone else's convenience.
Well, and it's not just your bladder. There are other instances where, am I impacting my ability to live a full life by doing this?
Exactly. And for me, that was my gateway,
Yeah.
is understanding that holding my bladder was metaphorical for other areas in my life where I was not doing the thing I wanted or needed or felt like I had to do because of somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Boof. So why is it that such a powerful doorway into boundaries and self-trust? Why is it that is such an important observation?
The whole thing about boundaries, when we start boundary work, is often through the lens of how can I set better boundaries for other people so that they fill in the blank. That's often how we're led to boundaries,
Right.
because we're frustrated, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. But the real work is internal. The real work starts with ourselves. And if we start to notice the ways that we're not even managing our own boundaries physically in our bodies, it can create an awareness. And that awareness is absolutely essential, because if we're not aware of something, we cannot change it. And so it has to start with awareness of ways that you might be actually giving away your boundaries before you even set them.
But what if so this is a bonus question, because this is actually something that I think a lot of people do. I was in a really bad car accident in 1999. So one that without surgery, my back and neck are severely messed up all the time. And the only thing that makes it feel better is when I stretch and work out and move, right? And the pain never goes away, but at least it subsides and I don't think about it.
Mhm.
I actively, and I used to be a gym rat. I went to the gym every single day, hour to 2 hours a day. For 18 years I did that, and I stopped because I got burned out and overwhelmed and lots of stuff.
Mhm.
To this day, I actively, and I cannot figure it out, um, stop myself from going to work out,
Mhm.
stop myself from doing things I know will make me feel better.
Mhm.
It's almost like I'm punishing myself. And I know people that do this.
Absolutely. There are people that do this. In fact, most of us do this on some level. And it comes back to this nervous system work. And here's why. There's some part of you. It could be a protector part, which is like, let me come back to parts work, like IFS, informed therapy, internal family systems. I'm not a therapist. I'm a somatic coach with IFS training. And that's really important to discern and distinguish here. But if we think about parts, the self is the whole part. And our goal is to integrate all of our parts into the self. Goal meaning, hopefully, by the time we're done with our lives, we've done that. But until then, we're going to continue to meet these other parts of ourselves. Protector parts are very often tied to a specific role that they play. They're protecting us from being hurt again, hurt
Oh, yeah.
emotionally, hurt psychologically, hurt physically. Then we have these child parts. And oftentimes, the child parts are based in a period of time, but they're not necessarily children. So, for example, in 1999, that years old of you might be frozen in time with an unmet need. And the
Oh,
unmet need was
yeah.
probably healing and pain relief, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so it would make total sense that this whatever part would say, oh, wait, no, it is too threatening for us to go to the gym because of this. So it can be a
Oh,
part of you that is literally holding you back. That doesn't mean that we give that part permission to continue to hold you back forever.
right. Right. Right.
It means we work with that part, we figure out what she needs. We try to give her that through reparenting and somatic practices. And then we try to integrate that part so that we can work with her. So that's one of the major reasons why people say, I want to go to the gym, and then they don't go, is because there's literally a part of them that's holding
Yeah.
them back.
Yeah. Seriously, it's not laziness. It
No,
actually hurts.
it is
It
not
hurts until you
laziness.
get going,
And
right?
it's not failure. Like a lot of
Yeah.
times we'll turn it inward and we'll be like, oh, I just don't follow through. I'm
Right.
weak. I'll sabotage, all those kind of things. Maybe that's true. But in most of my work, I have
Right.
found that is not true.
Right.
In most of my work, I have found that there's some part that's unhealed,
Oh, that's
whether it's a
interesting.
part that needs forgiveness from you or an unresolved wound from childhood. And when we work with those parts, then we can move forward. And that's why that somatic work is essential.
Oh, that's crazy. What a great answer. When you bring up the nervous system regulation, like some of what we're talking about here, into a workshop, what shifts show up first? Communication, conflict, decision, fatigue, absenteeism, retention, and how do you help leaders notice these changes?
Well, I think that's a really big question, and it assumes that everyone's dealing with the same issue. And that might be true, but more often than not, there are issues of belonging, issues of emotional safety at the workplace. Like if you're a leader and you're leading a team or you're leading an organization, if there's not emotional safety, people will withhold. They'll withhold engagement, they'll withhold communication, they'll even withhold their best work
Well,
because they don't feel emotionally safe. So when we begin to do somatic work, usually the first thing that happens is there's this realization that I have unprocessed emotions about this. And that can be a little uncomfortable. Let's just say it is because it's true. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but then it also is like opening up the door to healing and repair and conversation. Because if we have these stored up emotions in our bodies, in our nervous systems, we're not thinking clearly anyway. And by allowing them to begin to flow, two things happen. One is we can begin to regulate our own nervous system. So we're each thinking more clearly, we're making better decisions, we're more grounded, we're less reactive. We're not stuck in the part that's saying, no, don't go to the gym. That's not safe. Because we have healed that through somatic practices like breath work or somatic movement. Breath work is my go to, especially at events where people may not feel physically safe. Because if we go into, I don't mean physically safe like actual physical threatening types of situations, but I mean, if we're in a group where there's been some kind of a rupture, there might not be that feeling of being safe. And I like breath work for this because you can stay in your own chair, you can close your eyes and have your own experience. It can be incredibly profound, and you still feel safe because you are doing it in a way that feels like it's on your own, even though it's with the group.
Right, right. And if we think about it, people, and especially in this question, where leaders are evaluating the instances that their employees are going through and how to communicate with them, if you think about it, we're all just bundles of emotions walking around everywhere.
Absolutely. And, I would say every one of these issues, whether it's communication or absenteeism or the quiet quitting, it comes back to this piece of emotional safety. Because if I'm not emotionally safe, I'm not going to show up for work. If I'm not emotionally safe, I am going to be thinking about something else while I should be focusing on my task.
Yep.
And so, if we can create that emotional safety, it is not a luxury, it's essential. And it's what we really need to be focusing on in our current climate, because there's so much lack of safety, lack of certainty out in the world right now, especially in the United States, that the more we can acknowledge that people need emotional safety, the more we can begin to move the needle in not only our lives, but our businesses.
Well, and that's an interesting prospect when you think of the leaders. I put that in quotes because these people I don't necessarily believe are that are demanding that their workforces come back to the office.
Mhm.
When many of them are like, no, we are productive. We're more productive working the way we do on a remote basis. Why? Because of your control issues, are you making us come back into the office? I think that is a super important piece that leaders need to understand.
Well, and it'd be interesting to ask people about what is the resistance to going back into the workplace. Is it actually the commute, or is it that it's a toxic environment?
Exactly. Yes. That's huge. So how do you translate the work that this kind of work to HR folks who need proof and not poetry?
Oh, I love this question. So there's a ton of research. Literally, I have a whole Google Doc that's probably 3 pages long, single spaced, of links to the research about productivity going up, about workplace satisfaction, about emotional regulation being better across the board. And I think HR managers would agree that managing people's emotions is a huge part of what they end up doing, but that's
Yep.
not what they're trained to do. They're trained to do like the workplace hiring and the workplace benefits and the education and the training. What they end up doing is the he said, she said conflict resolution. And if we can help people find tools to regulate their emotions in the workplace, it will actually lessen the workload of the HR people. And one of the things that is so frustrating for employees is when people say they hear from their leadership in the workplace that they value um, the human resources, the actual humans, and then they're put into situations that are really trying or toxic or emotionally taxing, if not abusive.
Yep.
And so I think acknowledging that we are emotions, or we are emotional beings, and giving people a place to put that at the workplace can be actually very, very helpful in helping us get the actual work done. Because if we're stuck in an emotion, and by the way, even the most difficult emotions last 90 seconds. We know this through all different kinds of research, whether it's neurological or physiological research. We know that those emotions are firing, they last 90 seconds. But when people don't have any way to express that emotion, it gets stuck on a loop. And
Right.
that's why we have an instance of anxiety and depression at the workplace, especially in high pressure organizations, whether they're very fast paced businesses or hospitals or schools. There literally is not time to process emotion in the moment. It would be life or death, right? We
Right.
can't we can't stand around and feel our feelings if we're working on somebody in an emergency. But if we're not giving people a place to put those emotions, we're not doing as much as we can for people.
Well, no, it's their responsibility as far as the leaders are concerned. You deal with you, right? Not me dealing with uh my instigating of your reaction, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
infuriating. If a company is listening right now and thinking we need something practical that doesn't feel woo, what are 2 to 3 sessions, workshop formats that you offer that could solve some of these issues?
So I have one offer where I just come in one time and we do some breath work, we do some debriefing. We can do it in a meditation format, or we can do it more experiential where we don't use the meditation word depending on the ethos of the company. And that has been very, very successful for a lot of companies. I've gotten some great feedback from some of the teams at Nike that that was helpful for them. If you want a more
Wonderful.
ongoing type of situation, we can talk about building out a 3, 6, or 12-month program where I would come in once a month and lead people through a breathwork class, not only giving them the experience, but also giving them the tools that they can use on their own. And I have the infrastructure in my company to be able to provide digital resources for those that aren't able to attend live, because I know there's lots of different schedules constraints.
Yes, and that's very proactive of you. What's a great first booking keynote, lunch and learn, leadership retreat, or some kind of series?
I would say breathwork for leadership would be a really great place to start, because as leaders, we have so many different types of competing agendas. And it creates a tremendous amount of stress because we're trying to balance the competition. And the most regulated nervous system in the room is the most powerful person in the room. And so, if we can start with our leadership and get really well regulated as leaders, we're going to be making more sound decisions. We're going to be less reactive, more responsive to our people. And that's going to have a trickle down effect. So I would start there. And then, if we want to branch it out to the rest of the community, I would love to support that.
I think that's huge. That the identification of a leader to understand that this type of work is foundational to a great team ecosystem, for one. Two, versatility. Versatility is such a huge component to active productive teams. And in the spirit of versatility, do you do in just in person or digital representations, or I mean, are you versatile in how you expand your offerings?
I am versatile. I do in person if that is requested of me. I love to do in person work. I've done things at, national conferences, at state and regional conferences, in companies. I even met one corporation for their small group, their corporate leadership retreat at the coast. And the
Wow.
Oregon coast.
Right
And so,
on.
yes, I love the in person, but I do most of my work, the bulk of my work is remote, where I'm meeting teams and groups and individuals online in Zoom rooms. And I have, like I said, I have the company infrastructure to offer recordings of those those assets so that they can share them with their teams.
So what industries are most uh, receptive to this type of work?
I haven't really, I don't know a great answer to that question. And the reason is I'm continuing to be surprised the more I'm in this field of how many people need this work. If you would have asked me that question 4 years ago, I would have said education and healthcare. And those are still two that are very much need support. But I'm also finding businesses, tech, anything that's
I was
stressful
thinking tech.
and yeah, anything that's stressful and high
Yeah.
moving and pressurized is where we can use this work.
Yeah, I think tech needs leadership, and tech organizations need this opportunity seriously. And I probably wouldn't be the only one to say that. So, Brenda, do you have any closing thoughts?
I just want people to know that you have more control over the way that you're feeling than you think. And I'll leave you with one little closing activity, which is an appreciation practice. So if you can, in any really crunchy moment, stop, or even if it's not crunchy, just stop. We could do it right now and find 3 things that you can find in your physical space around you that make you feel the feeling of appreciation. So
Oh,
let's do
that's
a quick
interesting.
activity. Let's just look around. It can be anything that you see right now that you really appreciate and just notice
Oh,
what begins
everything
to
that I have.
happen.
Everything that I have, like all of the things that make my work work. My
Mhm.
laptop, the monitors, my phone, the lighting, all of the had it not been for my dad unfortunately passing away, I would not have had the money to buy the panels, the equipment that I have, my camera, all of these things. Everything around me I appreciate. All the books that I have, right?
Yeah.
Everything that helps me do better and more in my work. The ability that I have, the education behind me that offered me the ability to put all of these things together and make this happen. I am
Hmm.
deeply appreciative of every single one of those experiences.
And now take this into a meta exercise. How do you feel in this moment compared to even just a minute ago?
Lots better.
Isn't
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
interesting?
That's crazy. Yes.
So I have an alarm on my phone every day that goes off at 2 p.m. and it's just says appreciation practice. And no matter what I'm doing, who I'm with, I will say, "Oh, my appreciation practice alarm just went off. Do you want to find 3 things to appreciate with me?"
That is awesome.
And it just every day I'm amazed at how good I feel. And I've never had anyone say, "Well, no, I don't want to do that." Everyone's like, "Oh, yeah." And it takes like maybe 30 seconds. And it, even in really positive conversations, really positive events, there's an up level.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely instantly elevates your mood and makes you want to go do stuff. So
That's
go
right.
go touch grass. I've been wanting to touch grass for a while, and it's beautiful in Portland right now.
It's gorgeous, sunny and beautiful.
Unseasonably sunny.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Brenda Winkle with Your Yes Filled Life sat here with me today, and I am very appreciative. Thank you for this awesome interview, Brenda.
Thank you for hosting me, Sherry, and thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. It really matters.
Thank you. That's appreciative. Hang on.